I'm Dr. Imran Amin, and I have two esteemed speakers with me today. On my virtual right is Professor Faisal Alamgir from Georgia Institute of Technology, and on my virtual bottom left is Professor Celia Shahnaz from Bangladesh University of Engineering Technology. And thank you, both of you, for your time today. I will just give a brief introduction of the speakers, and then we will jump into the topic of discussion. Professor Faisal is a professor at the School of Material Science and Engineering at the Georgia Institute of Technology. Before that, he has worked in Brookhaven National Laboratory, as well as in the Hunter College of City in New York. His research is on energy capture and energy conversion with alternate materials. On the other hand, Professor Celia is a well-known face with IEEE and renowned researcher in her field of electrical and electronics engineering. She has done numerous collaborations and she's a very active member in the IEEE Women in Engineering, and she has been recently been elected to be the IEEE WIE President nomination. So, with the topic of discussion today, and why personally I am also interested to know a bit more from you on this particular topic, is when we talk about student exchange program, that's kind of new to me as well. I can remember when I was 10 years ago, when I was at UED doing my master's and looking for opportunities to go overseas, either USA, Canada, or Australia, to do my higher studies, I didn't have much idea about student exchange. With time, when I went to Monash University to pursue my PhD and later on at MIT for a visiting researcher position, I found there are numerous students coming from all over the world in USA and other countries who were coming in collaborative projects or student exchange programs, and it varied how they came or landed in the USA. And some of them came in undergrads, some came in graduate programs, some were just doing a lab, or some were using a particular tool in a lab. So there are different ways people can move around and do collaborative projects. So that's why I thought this topic would be of interest for the students in Bangladesh, and that's why we are co-hosting with IEEE Bangladesh section today, just to know a bit more about what's in this space of student exchange program, what's in there. And that's why we have Professor Faisal to give us some overview. And also we have Celia to give us a bit of background what's happening in Bangladesh. Maybe there are already opportunities Bangladesh universities has been going into. So I will start off with Professor Faisal, just to get a brief overview of what sort of like an umbrella description of what sort of student exchange program are there available in USA for foreign institutions.
Thank you, Imran, for inviting me to speak here. This is a topic that I have a long-term interest in helping to develop and helping to nurture, especially with Bangladesh. And the reason I'm saying especially with Bangladesh, and it's not just because I'm from Bangladesh, it's because I found that over my academic career, there have been very few students from Bangladesh who have reached out to me in a way that we can actually do something with, an actionable approach. That is, the student would contact me asking to do some, let's say, research over a period of time that would help them with their thesis, and it is a very targeted work, and they need some specific facilities, something like that, something well thought out, and they have a funding source or a potential funding source. It is not like that. If I have any contact from a student, it is like a very general contact, like how can I come to the US to do something, that kind of thing. Whereas I found many other countries, students already approach me with very specific, very well-structured plan, including resources to help support themselves. So this seemed like a large gap for me. And to make the point even sharper, I found that the countries that we could best compare ourselves with, for example, Pakistan, I've had, and I still have every year, multiple students at the PhD level who contact me wanting to come for 6 months with the possibility of extending it further to do some critical research work for their thesis. And I've already hosted several of them. 2 more are, I'm working with the paperwork for hosting them this year. And it's a very fruitful collaboration. It's a very fruitful exchange. So I felt that there's something missing on the Bangladesh side. Actually, it requires sort of an openness to the idea. I think that the students are already very open to the idea. It's not that. But it also requires the structural part. And the question then is what structurally is missing and what can we do to help push that forward. So that is my long-term interest in trying to help do my part in establishing.
Excellent. Thank you, Professor Faisal, for giving just an introduction to the topic. Just an introduction to this topic, I would ask Professor Celia to give your input of where we actually stand. And frankly speaking, because I left Bangladesh 10 years ago, I'm not with the academia currently. I would like to know what's happening in this space. If you can give us some more insights, that would be great.
Thank you, Imran, for inviting me today in today's webinar, and it's a great honor to connect with Dr. Professor Faisal, and it's a good topic on which IEEE Bangladesh is working very hard for the last 10 years. What I want to tell you that there is an information gap. You know, this is not that why Bangladeshi students are not reaching out to Professor Faisal. Is important to me, they are not aware of that is there any opportunity like that. I'm sure, as per my experience, when opportunity and benefits of research, collaboration, student and faculty exchange, these things are made open to Bangladeshi students, I think they will be very much interested. But you know, there are still some, it's not exchange program, but there are a lot of collaborations going on in individual level. Okay, an individual professor with their connection, they are connecting, they are collaborating, but there are some institutional approaches, like there are some approach what Professor Faisal is telling, that there are opportunities that should be made more available to our faculty like us, so that we can make available to the faculty, young faculties and graduate students, so that they can at least start their research. There, in Bangladesh, we have made a huge progress in research for last 10 years. You know, when I was doing my undergrad, I never thought of writing a paper like that. But IEEE Bangladesh has been organizing so many authorship workshops, so many skill development workshops, starting from MATLAB, Simulink, like that, that will help our students to move ahead in their undergrad study without making a discrimination between academia and IEEE. We try to make IEEE as an important part of their life, as their enhancing step of their life. And I have seen that people are writing papers even from their first year level. Then how those papers were published, because the registration fees in flagship conferences are sometimes, for me, $800, $900. Who is doing it? it's funded through our collaboration to the United States or Canadian faculties or with other collaborations. So this has been increased a lot in individual level, but we may not have this documentation. I may have mine, but we want to summarize all those resources together. And most important, it will be very, very much beneficial if we can hear from Professor Faisal that what are the opportunities exist so that we can make it readily available to our students, to our generation, so that it works as a matching factor to the efforts IEEE Bangladesh section is doing for reaching technical activities from a very few students, 9 student branches before 2014, now 55 student branches is a huge growth. And in Bangladesh is now reaching in student membership on place 5. Besides India, China, Canada, United States. Can you imagine? Can you compare the benefits and the economic stability those countries have? And can you compare those benefits with what we have in our country? Still, we are in the 5th position in the whole world because of our huge personal drive to the root level. But it is important to take the scratch initiative exist to many faculties to bring it to the common platform. Also, we can add more new avenues to our students. I think it will be very beneficial as a country where students are writing papers, motivated now to writing papers from the first year. So it's a huge potential, and we can give them opportunity. Even staying in Bangladesh, they can serve as a RA in a research projects. They do not need to go virtually because there's a travel grant involved in anything. And they'll be very happy if the faculty and student and a faculty from US, Canada, we can come forward with a topic and we can start joint publication. Then it will give him or her an opportunity to visit the lab virtually, to visit the industries virtually, and in the long run, they will be part of the recruitment process. So I'll be talking more in your subsequent questions, but I want to tell you the scenario and standard and the platform of Bangladeshi students and faculty has progressed a lot in the last 10 years since I rejoined IEEE in leadership position after my PhD. So if you search IEEE Explorer, you will see the lot of publications from Bangladesh, and it has been increased a lot. At least I didn't see in 10 years back. And also I didn't see it when I left Bangladesh for my PhD study as a Canadian Common Scholar. Situation is so much optimistic, but we have to harness the best outcome of it, the way we have did in IEEE Bangladesh, and we have placed it to the global. We have increased the visibility of Bangladeshi potential to the rest of the world. And I'm sure in case of student exchange, in case of research collaboration, we can also do it in a united manner, in a more visible manner and more effective manner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Celia. I think it's really insightful just to get an overview of where we stand. And if I just summarize your points, that first of all, we have enhanced our collaboration in the personal level or in the collaboration between different research groups through personal collaboration or institutions like IEEE tremendously in the last decade or so, or 5 to 10 years, which is exciting. And I think that's kind of the stepping stone of getting to some institutional or formal structure of student exchange program. That's there we stand. At the same time, I think what you mentioned on alluded two different aspects. One is having student exchange or similar type of program. It can be between two academic institutions, and sometimes I also know there are student exchange programs between one academic institutions. For example, when I was at MIT, I saw from Tata there were students coming or researchers coming to work in our lab. So between industry and academia, that can also happen. So there can be other processes, which is institutions and between institutions. So these are the two other aspects. And I think what you said is, for example, some of the public universities in Bangladesh very well known in some of the academic institutions in USA, and some of the professors in USA, they are actively taking students, helping them through collaboration or other, data, taking data, or in providing conferences. That's also happening. Now, I would like to move to Professor Faisal, just to enhance the points a bit more, just to give your insights about, firstly, when we talk about collaboration, definitely that happens through similar research topics, through conferences, journal papers, we do collaboration. But when we talk about structured collaboration, what do you see, and how that can be more structured? What are the ways you see? And then if you can touch a bit on when you say international institution-based collaboration or structured programs, what might be the very higher level initial steps that you can guide us a bit? And that would be excellent to know.
Well, for one thing, I have lots of thoughts, and so I'll try to keep myself from going on tangents. Let me just first say that one thing to do one thing that can be done right away is for a graduate students, the graduate students that are in Bangladeshi universities right now, to invite faculty from, let's say, Bangladeshi faculty from in American institutions to be on their thesis committees. I don't think anybody will say no to that. That initiates the connection. The faculty gets a deeper understanding of the level of work that is being done by that group, and then it also sets up a potential collaboration with the advisor of the student, provided that advisor they don't already have an existing one. So this would be a good way of seeding connections between groups. And I am connected to the Bangladeshi Educators of North America. We have an association, BINA. It's a fairly new organization, and our charter is to try and help actually ourselves. I mean, those who are senior faculty or more senior faculty help the more junior faculty, and now we're trying to even expand into the Bangladeshi students who come to US on visa and want to go into academia in the US, how to kind of help them through all the steps that you have to go through, how to get a postdocship and all of those things. So we have our own ecosystem that we're trying to build, but through the connection to back to Bangladesh, And one of the points I made when we had our last meeting was that we do not have strong connections to Bangladesh. That is one of the things that we need to establish as a part of our charter. So we will do things here, but we have to kind of look out to Bangladesh and work with our institutions there, our students there. So there's a whole range of academic disciplines in which we have faculty just ready, I guess, to tap into for connections. So that's one thing. Second thing I would say is that for technical degrees, one easy way to, nothing is easy, of course, but one relatively easy way to kind of get the foot in the door for getting high quality data, getting a connection to a high quality researcher at the US side would be to apply for time at a shared facility, large shared facility. So this would be something like a national lab, or it would be a user facility, like a large, let's say, for electrical engineering, it might be something like a large clean room facility with a lot of, if you're in the device making side of things, then it would be something on that side. So for example, in Georgia Tech, we have very nice clean room facilities. And so what might be possible then is to try and make a connection to the facility. And that assumes that on the facility side, there are the right people with the right mindset to help that along. And that is something that we on the US side have to work on, is to make sure that that's easy. But for example, at a national lab, like Oak Ridge National Lab or Brookhaven National Lab, where I used to work, if you want to get some time on a world-class facility, so I used to do a lot of work with synchrotron radiation. And so if you want to get time on synchrotron radiation, they're obligated to read your proposal for that time. You submit a proposal and they're obligated to read it and rate it on the same level as everyone else. So if it's a competitive proposal, then you get time, then that is your at least from the visa point of view, that is your ticket to going to US for a short period of time, of course, and getting some critical data. Nowadays, after the pandemic, I think a lot of these kinds of facilities have found ways to do remote data collection and remote collaborations with these high-end facilities. So you don't actually physically have to come. In fact, it is so much so that even I cannot go to a synchrotron right now if I want to do my experiments in the US because of the pandemic situation. I have to work remotely. So it'll all be through live video and we share screens and things like that. Now, if we have, the right people with the right mindset at the two ends, these can also be set up. And this would be a good way to, again, establish high quality work first on the Bangladesh side. And that's what I think is really needed, because what you want is students to have a chance to come here and get, important experience and important data. But when they go back, they cannot be lost with something that they cannot follow through on in their own environment. So I think that Bangladesh, so everybody who's listening is probably looking at me like, what offer do I have, or what opportunities do I have to share? To tell the truth, the way the US will look at the situation is like, what opportunities are you bringing to us? Unfortunately, this is the situation that we are living in right now. And even though we are in the new administration, at the federal level, it is still not so progressive in its vision as to not first see what is in it for us, kind of thing, right? So there aren't currently any programs specifically targeted to Bangladesh, that's for sure. And even if we think about programs like Fulbright, then they have existed the whole time, and you can take advantage of that. So what I would say is that rather than looking at the United States as a source of resources for travel funding, and what we should do is find ways to nurture and build resources in Bangladesh so that students who are capable and are able have the resources to come here. And we can, of course, both are necessary, but I think that this is something that we really need to be serious about, because if I compare, I gave the example of all the students that I've hosted. I've had 18 scholars from various countries that have come through my lab in the last 13 years, and so more than one scholar per year from somewhere is in my lab. And none of them are from Bangladesh, but there were from Pakistan, China, Egypt, Iraq, Germany, Italy. So putting the first world countries aside, Germany and Italy aside, you can still see countries that we can compare ourselves to. like Egypt and Pakistan, right? And certainly, and also Iraq, I would say. Every single one of these cases, they had their own governmental level resources for doing this. And if not governmental, then it was the university that had some kind of a resource that allowed them to come. So that makes things actually very simple, also from the visa point of view, because then we can say that, okay, the person is coming with this national resource. It fits our our budgetary needs for what they would need when they come here, and all the paperwork goes much faster. So anyway, I just wanted to say that I pointed out a few things. One is that the invitation of Bangladeshi faculty to serve on dissertation committees, thesis committees. This can be at the PhD level, master's level, maybe even undergraduate level, although we have to think about what that really means, whether you actually have committees for that or whether it's just an advisor. And then I talked about facility access. And actually prior to that, I talked about the Bangladesh educators of North America as a group. So maybe we can do something to at least make that connection, direct connection between some associations in Bangladesh and BINA in North America. And then finding ways to apply for facility time. And aside from that, I would say there are the larger things like Fulbright, which again I have had students from other countries who seem to know what to do about this, but in Bangladesh I don't. I tell them about it, and then they this was my last time I interacted with the Bangladeshi student would have been about 3 years or 4 years ago, and so maybe it is a little dated information, but at that time the students were not that aware of what to do to get Fulbright and all that. So these are the kind of things we can help with. And we can do a lot of things in terms of trying to virtually collaborate. I mean, this doesn't sound great, but actually there are a lot of things we could do. For example, we talked about in a moment ago about writing papers, right? And that the level of scholarship or publications have gone up, as Professor Celia has mentioned. To keep that going and to accelerate it even better and to make it even higher quality, we can have technical writing workshops, for example, right? And these are now, this is a case where you teach students the ABCs of how to present the work orally or how to present the work in written form, and it's not trivial actually. There's a lot that we can work with virtually on that. So anyway, I'll stop here with these ideas first, and then let's see where we go next.
No, thanks, Professor Faisal, again for your insights, and I think you made some really good points to further discuss. Particularly, you summarize the areas how we can have we can start engagement, or the engagement we already have, we can enhance that. We can definitely talk into it. So as I move on to Professor Celia, I would just try to get your insights, and one of the reasons definitely I wanted to have your input is because you are an international collaborator, first of all, yeah. You're international activist. You want to present Bangladesh student branch through IEEE definitely to the world, and the amount of research, collaboration, and enthusiasm starting from undergrad level and definitely graduate level students have while they're in Bangladesh. And I'm not just talking about BUET, but other public and private universities are keeping up in pace. So in this aspect, if we want to, if you can highlight a bit more about collaborating and what sort of collaborating is currently happening in different areas from Bangladesh to overseas, and has there been any cases that you can portray us, or potential cases where students have gone through not exchange programs maybe, but some successful collaborations, as we may say, from an institutions, and how was it, and can share some of your experience or knowledge on that. That would be great.
Thank you, Imran. I can tell you about 20 years back, when I started my career at WIT. So I have seen that time we had collaboration with the University of Alberta. University of Alberta in Canada, and the situation is the waiting factor of good students was so high, so that the requirements, TOEFL requirements were waived for good students. So what I actually wanted to do for to make Bangladesh stronger from the root level, that these facilities needs to be taken to all universities, almost all universities who are running individual program, because the entry into BUET is very, very competitive, and it doesn't mean that somebody who has missed BUET for 3 hours exam, he or she has not do not have the potential. Yes. So we can extend the facilities to all of them. And secondly, I have also seen that MIT linkage project, and many of our students, especially from civil engineering department, has done their PhD through that linkage program. And also I have seen that individual rebels, I have collaboration between University of Saskatchewan in Canada, or many Australian universities. Also, I have my collaboration with my PhD supervisor since I have finished. It's almost more than 10 years. So there are many other collaborations like University of Texas, Arlington, UT Dallas, like that. But what is important for us that, I can tell you in Bangladesh in 2020, that is the worst situation. We didn't see such, I should say, pandemic ever. But when everything was stopped, IEEE Bangladesh was not stopped. In the month of June, we did the Asia Pacific flagship conference, TENSIM 2020, handled more than 1,000 papers, presented around 446 papers, around more than 40 keynote and invited speakers, and many parallel sessions. This is for the first time we really did, when there are many big IEEE conferences were closed by IEEE centrally. Bangladesh has taken that courage for knowledge dissemination, for timely outcome of the research paper through Asia Pacific flagship conference, where IEEE president came as a I should say the chief guest in the inauguration, and technical activities board that covered 39 technical societies like Electronic Device Society, Signal Processing Society, like that. Technical activities vice president also came. But I have seen that in last year, maybe 200 foreign faculties I myself has invited in more than 130 events. But what I never heard, what Professor Faisal has said, that we never heard about ever any proposal about that a Bangladeshi faculty who is working so hard to publish in an IEEE transaction with a student from undergrad, because we don't have a lot of PhD students, because we want our PhD student to go to MIT. And 20 years back, I didn't see any students going to MIT. But now, Bangladeshi students from BUET are going to MIT, Princeton, Berkeley, Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, University of Southern California, Georgia Tech, and VTech, everywhere. Waiting factor of Bangladesh students have been increased so much, and California Davis. But we never heard, say, I invited more than 200 foreign faculties for different talks, different seminars in 1 year. But I never heard this very generous offer that a Bangladeshi faculty who is working so hard to publish in impactful journal, impact factor maybe more than 9 in IEEE transactions, and then a faculty is capable of supervising or co-supervising your student, your undergrad student, your master student, your PhD student, your PhD committee. So this will be a great boost and great recognition of faculties who are capable of doing it. You know, they will be seeing their CV. That will be a very good thing, I should say, because otherwise we will always do those collaboration in scratch, but actually our hard work and our real recognition will never be achieved. So it can be achieved. And also I have seen another collaboration. I have known some of the students who are connected to the US faculty, working on a research project, maybe getting some $500 per month as an RA. That's a very trivial money, right? But it's a very important for a Bangladeshi student, right, to get such RA. So this is another important thing that which are going on. I told you some really happening collaboration at the faculty level and the student level, but yeah, the association that Professor Faisal is telling, the NRB, faculty members and the IEEE Bangladesh section that covers 55 university and more than 50 technical society chapter, more than 18 women in engineering affinity group. We can make these facilities open for all, and there will be an evaluation process, but at least there should be a platform. There is the MOU. There should be MOU between, it's not the MOU between, because our universities are doing a lot of MOUs. And I'm not aware or I'm not sure about the outcome of those MOUs. But this IEEE Bangladesh section and Professor Faisal's new organization, and of course, IoT for Bangladesh and Code 19 can come forward with the online MU where we can make this facility some platform where these facilities will be posted and it will be visible to faculty like me who is working very hard. You know, I work in deep learning, and now deep learning is a tool that is not just for computer vision, that is not just, it is for anything, speech, image, video, genomic, biomedical signals, even for VLSI and optical communication, power signals, power disturbance classification. So, but for me, what is needed? For it is needed computational facility, high computing GPU, which I don't have. It's very difficult. So my students use the Kaggle, and I have to struggle a lot to get those computational facility. Professor Faisal's organization can do, because I take database from my collaborators. Many of the databases are publicly available. Some of the data are not publicly available. I had to do, say, I work on seizure, epileptic seizure detection. I have the publicly available non-invasive data. If I want to get an invasive data, so I need a collaboration with the Boston Hospital, but who can do it? I can't do it, but I need it for publishing in a very impactful journal. One of my papers, you know, Imran, with Ashfanur Kabir, when he was a young master student, and I returned from Canada. My first course was biomedical signal processing that I was offering, and he has taken the course. As a part of the course, there are 40 students. I have given 40 different topics as a research project, and Ashfanur continued with him, although he was from power, his interest was in power, but it was an interdisciplinary course. And we published a paper from an outcome of a project in master's course, and that paper published at that time, biomedical signal processing and control, Elsevier. We didn't thought that we will publish in IEEE. We were not confident enough, but I think I was wrong. I should have tried IEEE transaction. And that paper is cited now 333 times. It was a part of the project of a master's course. So we actually need to create, and many of our students and faculties are publishing in IEEE Access. You know, without doing anything, it is better to publish in IEEE Access, right? Rather than publishing, but they need publication charge. So we, and so say I have written a proposal that means 1 crore 12 lakh taka, like creating a biometric lab or creating some lab where we will bring non-invasive bilirubin estimation devices, non-invasive jaundice detection devices, low-cost intelligent control wheelchair. I really need some funds for that. So these are the opportunities we are looking for, and we are writing papers with the help of our collaborators to support our IEEE Access fees, to support our conference presentation, to support our registration fees. But if IEEE Bangladesh and Professor Faisal's organization can come together, where we will be able to post our needs, and the group of NRB faculties that Professor Faisal's organization is representing, they can evaluate. They can evaluate our need. They can evaluate. We can prepare a form to submit proposal. They can evaluate our proposal, and they can find that who can secure the funding from us. Like if I do biomedical signal processing, I need data from National Institute of Health. How I will get it? It's not possible for me to get. So these are the opportunities. We are trying very hard, and we are struggling very hard. And what we are doing, it is impossible for doing by anyone with the undergraduate students, because we are publishing transaction and Elsevier journals with our undergrad students and master students. We don't have enough PhD students, because in that way, when I will supervise a PhD, I'll supervise, or a faculty like me will supervise a master's in United States. Not all faculty, they will evaluate which faculty matches. They will see their citations, they will see the publication record. And I think we have the capability to do it. And I given you 3-4 examples, you know, and rather than going for a university level MOU, because it can happen, university level even, there are a lot of steps in it. But if we can do a platform where we will post our needs and they will evaluate, we will talk through a Zoom meeting, we will understand, they will, and then we can come through a win-win model to really make it effective. That is very important to design a win-win model. When we will when I will tell Professor Faisal, I really have written this proposal, and would you possible to fund it, evaluating my proposal, and where your organization will be the collaborator, or your faculty who are interested in domain will be part of this proposal, will be contributor of the proposal, will be the co-author of the outcome of the research of this proposal. So we can easily do it, and we should do it without making any delay. If we do it, and we will never find. Professor Faisal is giving example of the Pakistan. You really don't know how Bangladeshi students have progressed a lot. But only thing, your opportunities are not known to us. Like from 200 invited speakers, I never heard that I can be your supervisor. So that's very important. That's a very generous offer. But we have to make it, institutionalize it. We have to scrutinize it so that quality is maintained, which is very, very important. This will give opportunity to others to raise their quality, because it is an incentive. They will try to raise that bar. This is important for us. Thank you.
I think, yeah, that's very insightful again, Professor Celia, and that's what we were looking for. Just because you're working in ground level for so many years, and you know what's the ups and downs, and what the faculties in Bangladesh, hardworking faculties in Bangladesh facing, and some of the important points. Definitely, you put some case studies, successful case studies, and then what are the challenges you're facing. Funding is definitely one of the challenges, and I discussed with Professor Faisal before that who will fund. That's definitely some of the other countries have government funding, whereas funding, number one, is a challenge. The second is the mindset of student, mindset of faculty members on both sides. For example, how a faculty member who is eligible to get funds in Bangladesh will be known to a faculty member in US. So that's definitely a challenge, how we create that connection. And thanks for coming up with a nice idea that if there's an institution that Bangladeshi networks in the States can do sort of an MOU or sort of a platform with faculty level or institution level with the Bangladesh faculty, and they can come up with sort of proposals and a process of evaluating and giving out funds and start a collaboration. And they can also, at least funding can be the next step, but at least they can start looking what are the research potential in Bangladesh. I think that's also not very known, to be honest. Like when we say Bangladesh undergrad students are doing very high qualified journal papers or research papers, I think most of the faculties or institutions overseas, especially in the USA, doesn't know about it. So how we get them recognized? This can be a process, at least first to recognize that, okay, there is potential bunch of students and there are faculties who are actually working in this part of the world. So if you need to do any sort of RA, it can be TIA, because virtually now a lot of things are possible. Any data manipulation, and if you have a GPU that's sitting idle at night time, there can be someone who can access it and make use of it. So look, these are like very simple, straightforward opportunities that we can see, but it's just making it happen. So thanks, Professor Celia.
No, Imran, just give me 1 minute. I
Yes.
want to recognize the contribution of my country, and I didn't see the funding opportunities 10 years back. Now our university, especially the BUET, has newly devised funding mechanisms, how professors can be getting funding for their publications, how professor can be getting a 3 lakh small funding or a big research funding. And also I have seen our University Grants Commission. Recently I got funding for Bengali Sign Language alphabet recognition for deaf and dumb community, and also Bangla Braille scanner, like that. And also our ICT division has funding, but that's not enough.
Definitely.
So let's talk about funding first. It's possible to start the recognition like PhD thesis collaborators, like virtual RA on a topic of research project, or joint publication without any bureaucracy. That is, we have to really set some examples first, and we need a platform where our students, our faculties will be able to post their needs that can be seen or evaluated by Professor Faisal's organization.
Yes.
And then they can find opportunities like GPU. I participate in IEEE Signal Processing Cup competition from 2015, and my students was ranked 5th, 4th, and in VIP Cup competition, my students was ranked 5th. But you really don't know what they did in 2020 to get the GPU. It is clearly really impossible what they're doing. So this type of facilities, if can be done, that will be good examples for many. Then Professor Faisal will get idea that what and in last 2020 from our lab, we published more than 7 journal papers, one of them in IEEE transaction impact factor more than 9. And these are our silent heroes. So we really need to support those silent heroes to make them more visible.
Yeah.
So if Professor Faisal's organization and our organization, IEEE, can come together, we can do it without any bureaucratic process at the simple needs of our students, our young professional, our women in engineers. That will give a big boost to our research community. Ongoing momentum will be supported by our NRB faculty. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Celia, Professor Celia again. I definitely would go to back to Professor Faisal just to give your remarks on what the proposal have been come and also your insights on this. But also definitely for the sake of time, I would say if you can touch a bit on what your suggestion, because now we have been talking about collaborations, it's mostly institutional level or research group level, but if a general student level, because a lot of our audience are students as well and are aspiring graduates who is looking to go overseas, not only for exchange programs, if they want to go for graduate programs, how they can prepare themselves. If you can put some general notes, what you see successful graduates coming in the USA, that would be also beneficial. Thank you, Professor Faisal. Up to you.
Okay, so the discussion that we had about setting up collaborations between non-governmental associations and non-institutional associations that are, well, in the case of IEEE, it's a professional association. In the case of the organization I talked about, BINA here, which is Bangladesh Educators, it's Bangladesh Educators of North America. We are just, it's a labor of love type of organization. But the question now is, we would like to have as little bureaucracy as possible, as Professor Celia said, for any kind of endeavor. But there will always be some bureaucracy. When you get down to the details, something or the other will have, somebody has to push something beyond the activation barrier that prevents it from happening, mainly because it hasn't been done before. So there will be a lot of these cases where you have to set the precedent. So talking about GPU access, for example, let's say we have a faculty here who is in computational. So one of the Bangladeshi faculty in North America is themselves doing research in computational work, and they then have their own lab, which they could lend out some of their GPU time for. So that would be the easiest thing. Whether they say, okay, I'll share this percentage of my time. But what if their institution has a much bigger facility, which has a process by which you can access the time? Now, he or she may be able to access it because they are the faculty there. But once you're bringing in somebody from the outside, what is the mechanism for doing that? There may be a very specific mechanism for that specific institution. This is why I mentioned having that faculty as somebody that is on the thesis committee for that student whose work they're supporting makes things much easier, right? Because then you'd say, okay, they're kind of my niece or nephew. It's not my child, but my niece or nephew, and I'm helping them. This resource that I have, I can access it on their behalf because it's part of my research. So the only silent agreement there is that they're intellectually involved with this work, and therefore they will share co-authorship in papers that come out. And of course, that would have been the case anyway. But once that happens, then it's much easier for the faculty to make available the resources that they have available for themselves. So then the bureaucracy walls fall down. Okay, so there are these kinds of things that we can do where, as I said, make the relationships meaningful, connect intellectually with the people, not just say, I need this and do you have that? But I really like what Professor Celia said, to have a board where we can post needs and our BINA faculty can post expertise and facilities that we have access to. And then we can do some kind of a matchmaking, at least as a way of introducing ourselves to each other. So what are the problems and what are the needs and what are the solutions available. As far as your other question about how students can prepare, that was the other question, right? How students can prepare for
Yeah, just some general notes here.
yes. I mean, as Professor Celia said, our students are primed from since they were born to be competitive on the educational front. You know, they know that that they have to that their admission exams at every stage and so forth. So the competitiveness of the students or their drive is never an issue in my mind. The English knowledge, I think, also is not an issue. There are ways in which nowadays you can even bypass TOEFL. For example, at Georgia Tech, you can do we have this language institute that can do an interview and kind of go past it, because we recognize that not all people have access to these standardized test facilities at every place on earth, right? And you know, depends on where you're applying from. You may be in an urban place where you can go to a center that does the TOEFL exam. So we, in order for equity, we are trying to be mindful of this, that if you don't have access to a TOEFL or easy access to a TOEFL, you can try this other route. Anyway, I don't think that's a barrier for Bangladesh anyway, because we have enough exposure to English from an early enough age that English is a barrier. So then what could be a barrier? I would say, and this kind of comes back to this idea of technical writing and expression, right? That I think is the and let me just say one more thing in terms of translating your academic record to be understandable. Let's say you know your HSC or you know record. What were then and how that can be translated for. I don't think that's a problem either. So all of those things are not issues. Understanding academic record, understanding letter of reference, understanding all of those things. There's good parity between Bangladesh and the US. So the only obstacle I would say really, not a real obstacle, but the thing that I would say is the ability to be kind of confident in and the ability to have a way of storytelling about yourself. This is kind of a silly thing for you probably to hear, but America is really a country of fantasies and myth making. And you have to also make your own myth about yourself, about your journey and how that fits to this particular institution. And so if you write that personal statement in your application and it sounds like the kind of personal statements that win, you know, Oscars, you know, like when they go out and give speeches, that's what they like, you know. So there's a certain kind of training that comes with that, you know, on how to write, and rather than saying that I got this on my this standardized test and I got that in my other standards, and just listing all kinds of your achievements. You kind of have to make a story out of your life, and so I would say that is one small thing, and then the rest is about connection and network and hitting the right moment to be seen. So this is actually something that you do not know and understand. I can safely say, because I myself struggle to understand it. When we are giving offers to international students, it comes in the second tier. First, from various reasons, we're incentivized to look at our pool of US citizen applicants first, right? There are various incentives to do that. So we do that in my department, and I know that that's what's done essentially across the board in Georgia Tech. And then because there's actually a very active competition in trying to get the best students, and if you don't do it early for the American students, I mean, if you don't do it early, somebody else like Stanford will take your student, or Berkeley will take your student. So you have to kind of go through the pool very quickly and make the offers very quickly and try to get them and recruit them as fast as possible. So there's this game. The international students, therefore, we think of as in a basket where we can get to that basket later. Okay. All right. So what that means is that you're not even seen in the same pool as the other students initially. At least this is how it happens at Georgia Tech. All right. So this is an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage, the disadvantage is that you are under stress. You don't know whether people are looking at your file or not looking at your file. They haven't said no, but they haven't said yes. You're just some kind of in an suspended space, and you are contacting the faculty. The faculty are not responding, and that's going on now for several months. So what is your status now? So you might think that everybody's just too polite to say no to you, and that you're already actually a gone case. But it's actually not the case. Typically, you are just actually in that space where we are finishing with the American students. And the thing that happens with the American students is that we have to make many more offers than we know we have space for, because we know that they have too many choices, so they can go somewhere else. And so at some point, we realized that we actually have 40 students that we wanted to take, but we've only managed to get 22. So now we have to look at the international students and try and make up that difference, right? And at that point, suddenly the international students get importance again, right? But this happens later. So it'll happen around late March or April, even May, in that time frame. But you applied back in October or something. So by now you might think that there's no hope for you. So what I would say is that you would keep contacting the professors, particularly if there's some professors that you think that you have a direct connection with in some way. And I would also recommend to pick somebody a little bit on the younger side, because you can find people who look interesting, but then their interesting thing about them was 15 years ago, and they've really become sort of inactive, and you wouldn't even quite figure that out on your own. I mean, you can if you look at their profile and dig into it a little bit, you can figure out that they're not productive anymore. But try to pick somebody who is early to mid-career, and tell them in a personal way why their research is something that connects with you and you want to do this kind of work. If they have the ability to work with you, they will tell you that. And just don't be very generic in your approach to the, when you write the emails, and be a little bit persistent, but not annoying. Anyway, that's basically what I'm saying, that you can say, I'm sending a gentle reminder about an email I sent,
Yes.
last month. I would like to really work with you, and if there's an opportunity that comes up. And so anyway, the other important thing I want to say is that we support our students with typically with RA ships, right? And so that means that we're always looking for money and trying to match the money that we're getting with the student. But the money is not coming exactly at the right moment to to hire a student in the hiring season for our students. So it might be that I wanted to take a student, but all the American students are already gone, and then I got my funding, like in late May or something like that. And I would really like to have a student starting in fall. Now that puts a lot of stress for an international student, because if you give them the offer, they still have to get the visa and come and all of that. But there is a window of opportunity in the early summer, late spring, early summer, when they might get new funding and there aren't any of the American students to compete with. So that's what I would say is the advantage. Then you're already now just competing among other international students, which is not a simple competition, because the international student basket is also very strong. But perhaps by then, a lot of students have found a lot of different opportunities in different places, and the pool has come down. So just keep being persistent in communicating with the people. Try and communicate with more than one. Don't just be fixated on one person, because then you might be disappointed. And just keep trying, you know. And you have to have a little bit of a thick skin. That is, not getting a response from someone, or getting maybe even a rude response from someone, is not a reflection on you. It is a reflection on the system, and is a reflection on the person who is doing the response. So you just have to keep persisting.
Thanks. I think there's a lot of very good tips. If I knew 10 years back, I would have used it. Thanks, Professor Faisal. Now, definitely for the sake of time, I'll just kind of go to each of the speakers just to say some concluding remarks and your thoughts. So, Professor Ali, if you want to share your concluding remarks to today's discussion, and that
First of all, Imran, thank you for connecting me with Professor Faisal. I was really fascinated by his generous offers, insightful comments, and lastly, I really like the storytelling. That's really missing, and this is very important, that how you will place yourself, you know, and how you will be orator, how you will tell your story in writing. You may do very good in GRE, but important to how you place your case. This is a very important thing for our students. And secondly, I must again repeat that, especially Sima, I'm a faculty from BUET, and BUET is trying a lot nowadays to enhance the research culture at BUET, support the research through different means: publication fees, small research funding, joint collaboration. But I think that's, and also our UGC, our ICT division, our government are doing steps, but you know, that's not enough. So this is important to create this connection. I think what is missing, surely Bangladesh technical activities has progressed in a huge speed, but what is missing? The information exchange, which is important. So if I could do such meeting with Prof. Faisal 10 years back, when I returned from my PhD, the struggle I did, I really can't tell you that story, that how much struggle I had to do to break barriers in every step of my life for working for technical community. Because in our countries, people like to do the regular job, academic, CGPA, and they really think that it is an extracurricular activity. To me, it was a co-curricular activity, and it is very much part of our academic life. So if I could knew Prof. Faisal before, that I could really bring him on board with my ongoing initiatives, better late than never. We can start doing together, which is very important to know what are in your bucket list and what is in my bucket list. It is important to do this mentor and mentee matching, which is very important. If we interact more, if we can listen to each other more, we can find some overlapping lines, and that will give satisfaction for both of us, that we are actually pushing each other to the best of our capacity. This is important, Imran, to set up this as early as possible to bring more benefits to our students and young professionals.
Definitely.
And hope your organization will help, and I'm there to support. And Prof. Faisal is a very generous person, very cooperative person, and insightful and visionary person. Hope he will bring more opportunities, which we can see. Like my husband, Professor Fattah, who is also a professor in our department, he has collaboration with UT Dallas, and recently in different university, they have short-term visitor program. Like my PhD supervisor has short-term visitor program. Whenever they get this opportunity, they write the email, we fill up the form, and we do go there. But you know, every faculty in United States may have such opportunity, but
That's right.
we have to do it. We have to do it. Then whether we can avail it or not, if I don't avail it, somebody in Bangladesh will avail it. But since I give you two examples that I received from my PhD supervisor, or Sakib Bhai from UT Dallas, or Universities of Saskatchewan, my friend Arif. So this opportunity available to almost all faculty, but we need interface to know each other. This is very important. And I think we will not, we will feel you proud. We'll make you proud, I think. And we will try to learn from you. It is important to see and access the role models like you. So I have the opportunity and drive to know many fellows of IEEE for my personal passion, for my personal drive. But what about my students? What about my students in Pabna Science and Technology? From my BUET student in first year, I want to give opportunity to that, you know, to those students, those আমরা যেটাকে বলি প্রান্তিক জনগণ. That's very important because they returned home after doing a PhD. We need to give them some sort of facilities. Hope we can do it together. Thank you, Imran, for doing this.
Thank you, Professor Celia. And Professor Faisal, if you have any concluding remarks, I know it's very late on your side, and thanks for giving us time. If you have any very short concluding remarks on this topic, on today's discussion, then that would be great.
It's very late, but I'm feeling more and more awake every minute. Yeah, I'll try to keep it short. There's one other aspect that I didn't get to talk about, and that is, so as I mentioned at some point that, you know, the vision from the US government is still US centric, even though it's going to get better. It is still US centric and outward looking from US at the center. So in terms of funding, collaborations from the US government, let's say, it would always sort of, or mostly be about having our scholars, our students go out to the countries and interact with collaborators there, not the other way around. Although there are some small exceptions, like US state government with specific countries, the US State Department, I should say, US State Department with specific countries has mutual exchange programs that is funded by the US. But I would say the biggest funder of science in the US, that is, I would say, the most progressive and most outward-looking is the National Science Foundation. And the National Science Foundation, unfortunately, is still very US-centric. And so that may be a negative thing, but again, for setting up collaborations, if we can get the faculty from the US to go to Bangladesh, along with some students, and work there for a little while. And typically, like, there's the one program called IRES from NSF that supports three months stay for 3 years in a row. So that will altogether 9 months, but split over 3 years. So that's a significant amount of time over which to collaborate with someone. And in the time in between the 3 months each year, you can continue the collaboration remotely, or you can find other ways for the faculty and students from the Bangladesh side to come over. But for that to happen in a meaningful way, we have to have a strong proposal that we submit. So again, with the connection with our Bangladesh educators, we can try to foster meaningful collaborations, meaningful connections, so that we can write these into our proposals and say that we have these collaborations that we want to do, but we need to meet face to face, and we need to have exchange, cultural exchange. We need to have a meaningful exchange between the students, and that I think is one thing that we can do from our side, or try to do from our side. Although and then you will not be able to come to the US based on that funding. You will at least have the connection to us more firmly established. So that is another thing that I didn't get to talk about before that I thought I might mention. The other thing I want to just end on is this, that if we don't have a thriving PhD, programs in thriving PhD programs in our universities, it is just a reflection of what the demands are. Like there just aren't, that isn't a large demand for PhD graduates in the Bangladesh economy at the moment. I mean, maybe this is a very simple thing to say, but it is at least a little bit of a reflection of that, right? So perhaps our country needs to start evaluating the PhD level graduates and positioning them in the right place within the society for more people to want to be getting their PhD degrees, and sending out students abroad or having them aspire to go abroad most likely will end up having the students live abroad. I mean, in many cases, that's what's going to happen. And so we are going to keep perpetuating this brain drain, and we actually want to kind of do the opposite now, right? So given that we don't have a lot of PhDs, that's fine. What we're talking about now is student exchange, but I would actually like to say that it shouldn't be student exchange, but scholar exchange. Scholar exchange meaning that you don't even have to be a student, you can be a faculty, and we have to think about faculty going and doing sabbaticals in the US, and you could be, let's say, a master's student, you can be an undergraduate student. So at these three tiers, what are the different ways in which we can have students, the scholars come to the US and spend some time? And for me, 3 months is a minimum that you should come for. I mean, you can come for short term, even shorter than that, and it might be meaningful. But if you're not doing computational work, let's say, if you're actually making something, then there's a chance that something will go wrong and you have to troubleshoot and all that. So I think 3 months is a good amount of time at a minimum for this. So if there are people that are on the administrator side of universities or in the government listening to this, I would encourage you to think about how to set up resources for multi-month visits of one or maybe a team of people at a time from Bangladesh institutions to visit collaborators in the United States and really firm up the collaborations and get good data that then they can use for high quality research publications and high quality thesis work. Ultimately, it comes down to an ecosystem. It comes down to the culture, and we really cannot expect miracles overnight. Professor Celia has said that a lot of things have happened in the last few decades, and I'm very heartened to hear about them. But what we want is to make this like the norm and kind of grow. And we really want the people to think about this as think of Bangladesh as a frontier place for research. Now, if you think about Singapore, I'm going to stand here, like 30 years ago, or even 20 years ago, Singapore wasn't in the front of your mind as a research leading country, right? But just with a decade or so of investments, now you have several institutions from Singapore that are now ranked number 1 or number 2 or in the top let's say 50 institutions in the world, right? And this is an amazing achievement, I think, and the research is very high quality, so we can do the same thing, but it requires investment, it requires effort. So I'll end there.
Definitely.
Yeah, Imran, I just to add, Professor Faisal, when my PhD supervisor, actually in Canada, they write NSARC proposal. What is NSF in United States? I have seen that they include our input, or they input us as a co-PI in their funding application. I have also heard from Professor Saif Islam, University of California, Davis, and that there is a possibility of applying for NSF grant with a faculty from second country on board. And recently we got a good example in chemical department in Buet. One of our faculty got some NSF grant. So if possible, if we have that dashboard where we will be putting our research interest, our project, our thesis, and if any of your faculty come through it, come across it, and if by any chance you are writing any NSF grant, you can take us on board. I think that in any, what I read in answer, when there are multiple universities that and multiple faculty from different organizations, that proposal gets more weighting factor because it brings more people with more culture and more diversity in that proposal. If that's true, we can also think about it. And I can see in last 10 years, then one example that in some faculty has owned the NSF grant also, and there are NSAR grant proposal also. So we can think about it. And since the precedence is already there, what you said, we have to set it as a norm. That is important.
Yeah.
What NAS and Nanyang Institute of Technology could do in last 20 years,
right.
and we want to do it. And not only that, just think about our IITs. When I visited IIT Delhi and IIT Madras, a lot of foreign scholars are there in their dorms while where I was residing. Right. So we have to also create that culture that I have seen in IIT Delhi and IIT.
Hosting culture.
Yes, hosting culture. And it should be both ways.
Yes.
If it is not possible for us to go there, at least do it virtually. And this pandemic has taught us we can do anything virtually. Let's start. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the conversation has gone very deep than I personally assumed, and we have touched a lot of points, starting from a generic overview, what student exchange program is, what's happening in the States, and how some of the countries have been leveraging it, and where Bangladesh stands. And thanks again to firstly Professor Faisal for giving us insight, and the Professor Celia, I think you filled it up nicely and kind of given us the whole picture, what I was looking from you, the ground level picture, what's happening, where the barriers, what we have achieved also, and then some sort of really high level proposal for the next steps, I'd say. It can be MAUs through collaborations, really short recognition, validation, understanding of different, research groups, research potentials of Bangladesh students, and then going to co-publications, knowledge transfer, scholar transfer that we learned from Professor Faisal. I think that's really important, and a lot we have discussed and we have covered today. And I'm really happy that you guys have given us such an input to this topic. And definitely this is a topic of worth discussing, and we would continue discussing it offline and in other platforms in future events. For the sake of time, I'll definitely have to end it today. And thank you again, Professor Faisal, for your time. And I know it's very late there. And thank you, Professor Celia, for your early morning time. And I hope you all the best for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the wonderful privilege and opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll end
Thank
it
you,
here.
Prof. Faisal. Thank you, Prof. Faisal.
Okay. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Bye.